What's an oddly specific rule you follow in your life that nobody taught you, but you swear by it? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Clean the house before going on vacation. Doesn't have to be a whole house cleaning, but do the dishes, tidy up the bathroom, make sure laundry is done, etc. It makes you appreciate the vacation more, and a huge gift to yourself when you get home. Story 2. Every few days I check in on a different friend. I typically just send a simple, "How's it going?" with an article or meme attached that I think they'd find interesting. 99% of the time, everyone is fine or good, but man, when that 1% hits and someone is in the hospital or getting a divorce or moving across state lines and worried, I'm glad I checked in. Story 3. If I'm having a hard time absorbing information, I have to imagine explaining it to someone else who really doesn't understand that sort of thing. I end up imagining whole scenarios and lessons, makes the information stick way better than repeating it to myself. Story 4. Talk about people like they've wiretapped you. It's not about being nice. It's the idea that even if I do and complain about someone, I want to at least be able to justify why I said it. I see too many people get caught up in venting and forget to check if they even believe what they're saying. It's a pretty simple rule, but it cuts out so much pointless internal drama and petty grudges. Story 5. Every time I see a child wearing glasses, I make it a point to say, "I really like your glasses." As a middle schooler who had to wear glasses for the first time, the level of self-consciousness that I put myself through was off the charts. Even if only 1 out of every dozen children reacts positively, it's worth it to me. Story 6. Correct spelling and pronunciations of names shows an effort of being respectful. It's rooted in the fact that so many misspell my name, and it tells me they don't think details matter when detail is everything. Story 7. Your job needs to either make you happy or make you enough money that you can be happy outside of work, unless it is a sure way to progress your career, to do one or the other. So if I get frustrated at a job, I ask if I'm happy. Story 8. When you are standing up to leave a place, restaurant, Uber, movie theater, wherever, turn around and check your seat before you go. I've saved myself from losing so many phones, sunglasses, umbrellas, sweaters, etc. since I started doing this. Story 9. Don't listen to anything your brain tells you after 10 p.m. My mental health isn't great, and man, I will really start to spiral sometimes if I'm up late. I just tell myself this and go to bed, and it's often better in the morning. Story 1-0. I'm extremely forgetful, but if you don't live with me, you'd never know it, because I make a system that doesn't allow me to forget whenever I think I might. I have a bag for every activity I regularly go on. Everything that I need is in there and stays there. If I know I'm going to need something tomorrow, but for whatever reason can't put it in my bag now, I leave it somewhere where I have to interact with it to leave the next morning. Somewhere like in front of the door, in the sink. Phone, keys, and wallet go in my pocket as soon as I'm wearing pants and stay there until I go to bed. No changing into sweatpants for me, because I know I'll walk out without my keys if I do. Anything I can't prepare beforehand gets a checklist. Story 1-1. Work does not exist outside office hours. My work phone gets switched off at the end of the day. I make a note of where I was with my work and come back to it the next day. Not only does it help me switch off, it forced me to actually deal with the reasons work tends to spill outside office hours. I'm now far more efficient, far better at managing workload, and far better at setting boundaries and expectations with people, to the point that it's incredibly rare that I actually need to work outside of core hours anymore. Story 1-2. I don't believe in disrespecting people in their own homes. I have no idea why. If we're in your house and you're a POS, I won't argue or fight with you. I'll just leave. It's this weird thing ingrained in me that doesn't believe in treating people badly, even if it's well-deserved in their own homes. Story 1-3. Before ordering any food from anywhere, determine what I have on hand that I can cook in 10-15 minutes. Saves money, better nutrition, hot meal ready with the flavors I like in the time it'd take me to go somewhere and pick something up to come home and eat it, plus leftovers for the next day. Story 1-4. No dirty dishes in the sink. Full stop. No excuses. You can wash while the pan is heating up. Wash while it's simmering or coming to a boil. Those dishes after the meal, as soon as they touch the sink, just take the 10 seconds. Scrub it down, toss it in the drying rack, or dishwasher, I suppose. This came from childhood trauma of growing up in a hoarder house and loads of roach buddies crittering around overnight. No, we are dirty dishes. Story 15. Do the dishes as soon as possible. The longer they sit there, the harder it's going to get to motivate yourself to finish them. If you don't want to do dishes, don't cook something that requires lots of dishes. I guess this can be applied more broadly as like, don't make a mess you aren't prepared to clean up. Helps me not let stuff build up and get out of control. Less important, but never break the seal, is a philosophy I apply to games with microtransactions. Once I spend money on it once, I know I'm going to be comfortable doing it again. So I have a rule that I never do that. Only drink alcohol 2 nights a week, max is another one. Vacation is an exception. 1 sugary drink a day, max. Since implementing this, I don't even want soda anymore, unless it's a good root beer, LOL. But 1 a day applies until the supply is gone. And most days I never have a sugary drink. Story 16. Smaller, yet vulnerable people furthest away from the road when walking. Stronger individuals closet to the road. Never even noticed I did it until my ex-husband pointed it out one day. I watch now and a lot of people do it, but it's not a conscious or taught decision from what I can see. Story 17. Babies need hats. Hot outside? Baby needs a sun hat. Cold? Needs a beanie. Lovely day? Needs an accessory. This was my mom's rule, and to this day, anytime I see a baby out in public with its fuzzy head on display, I hear my mom's voice as she whispered disapprovingly through her teeth. That baby needs a hat. ETA. Wow, sorry to piss off the parents, OMG. It's a cute little rule I have as someone who will never have kids. It's my joke judgment I have in my head with my dead mom. Not a rule I think you or your children need to follow. Story 18. Just let the person merge in. Who cares if they're being a D-bag? You don't lose anything by not doing it, but cutting them off is probably going to lead to something worse. It's okay to be the bigger person. Story 109. If I'm worried about something going randomly and catastrophically wrong, like what if my car loses a wheel right now? Or what if I get struck by lightning? I will tell myself, well, now that I've thought about it, it's way less likely to happen. What are the odds something crazy would happen and you were able to call it before it happens? So far, I've never been proven wrong. Story 20. If I don't need to separate, I will always shake eggs very well when cooking. There was a Mickey Mouse comic where Mickey was an insanely talented TV chef, and everyone tried to replicate his recipes, but they never tasted the same. Mickey said the magic is how you prepare it and how you feel the cooking, and shaking eggs was one thing. Story 21. I get bad migraines that include brain fog. When I was a teenager, I started listing the colors around me to refocus my brain. As an adult, I started doing this with anxiety or from being overstimulated too. I've since learned that I basically figured out a grounding technique on my own without realizing that therapists teach similar things. Story 22. I'd rather someone be honest with me than BS me. Even if I don't like what they say, I'll thank them for their honesty and tell them I respect them for that. It's shocked a few people, but they think better of me for taking their truth on the chin. I've never had a bad reaction to what I say back, and it frequently diffuses the situation. Story 23. When you leave a voicemail, this is the script. Hi, this is Name. My phone number is Yirash. I'm calling regarding Ngueziu. Please call me back. Time, earliest convenience. Again, my number is Yirash. The important thing is to get the number in there early and at the end so that they have 2 chances to hear it and don't have to sit through your whole message again if they need to hear it again. Story 24. If you can merge without any impeding of the cars behind or beside you, it's okay to merge, even if you are close to the exit. However, you must be fully prepared to miss the exit and take the hit. Never inconvenience another driver for your lack of planning. Story 25. Don't be afraid to speak up in meetings to challenge what you have just been told. I used to sit there and listen to the BS about the company and the work, knowing it was all nonsense from our on-the-ground perspective, getting more and more frustrated with the job, my manager, and the company. As soon as I started challenging stuff in the company, workplace social media, and meetings, and becoming more militant in my stance, I found I am much more confident in challenging important things like health and safety or orders from supervisors to do things against the policy that could result in firing. Whereas before, I would have just done stuff and then stewed about it, becoming jaded and miserable and angry. I am more at peace with my manager, as talking to him has demonstrated to me he is under pressure to get us to believe those things he is told by the C-suite and so on. So he is as much a victim of BS as us, and colleagues because they have said they feel the same and have thanked me for speaking out. I now enjoy my job because I called out bullshit when I see it or hear it. Story 26, just be kind. That's it. That's all. I used to be a huge asshole. I was tough for the sake of being tough. I was right for the sake of being right. I interrupted people when they spoke. My favorite topic was me. I jokingly teased people. I was in a hugely toxic relationship where we were both terrible to each other. I was angry all the time. I was always the victim. And on my 32nd birthday, I found myself celebrating alone and without friends. I sat there for a long time and tried to pick apart what had happened. My first deduction was, it's them, not me. Then I realized I was the common denominator in this equation. That's when I changed pretty much everything. I stopped watching a certain hate-filled news channel. I started to try putting in effort to be kind to people. It was hard to relearn how to argue, disagree, or even converse, but I stuck with it, using online advice forums to learn how. I identified my own toxic behavior and learned about it, trying to pull the weed from the root so it never grew back. The biggest neat change I made was hanging out with a whole load of people who I didn't really agree with their views on the world. I listened to feminists, drug addicts, liberals, POC, people who had lost it all, musicians who hated the government, and people who chant ACAB. It took time, but I don't even recognize the person I was in my 20s. I hate that guy. Being kinder has had the biggest impact on my life out of literally anything else, including college or getting that dream job. Story 27. If a chore or cleaning something up or putting it back in its place takes less than 60 seconds, do it right then and there. I'm talking like a jacket can be hung up instead of tossed in a chair. An empty bottle can be put in the trash. Plate can go into the dishwasher instead of left on the coffee table. Toilet paper roll replaced. It's right there in front of you, and it takes less than a minute. You don't have to make time for it, and it keeps it from building up into a bunch of large tasks down the road. Story 28. If you're debating over whether you should or shouldn't do something one last time, don't do it. This started after one last run while snowboarding left me with my collarbone poking out from my shoulder. And I started realizing that the one last time moments usually never live up to how good I'm feeling while having the mental debate, and that's always when things go wrong. So now if I'm feeling really good at the end of whatever I'm doing, I just take that good feeling and leave. Story 29. When you see a small child with a parent who is distracted or not attentive, be extra alert. I changed my path a bit in a parking lot in case the kid darts in traffic I can intercept. Stopped a kid at Costco from putting a laundry pot in mouth recently. I even ran after and jumped in a moving car with no driver. Only a toddler. The mom left it running on the curb when in a store, and somehow it popped into gear. Story 30, 77. I believe in listening to the rhythm of my life. That when I'm in the right place and making sound choices, everything in my life gets easier and my life flows. I intuitively know what to do next. It feels like my life has synchronicity. But if I get too controlling or defensive or selfish, it suddenly feels like I'm out of step. The flow stops and a feeling of being disjointed sets in. Everything gets harder and that feeling of synchronicity goes away. Story 31. I go through life assuming I'm being recorded and that it's possible the recording be made public. It keeps me from being an asshole even when I'm alone, and stops me from saying mean gossipy things about people behind their back. I still have negative comments about people or about their actions sometimes, but by assuming I'm being recorded, I will only say something that I can defend to that person's face if it ever comes out. It helps keep me honest, kind, and less petty, and gives me confidence when talking to people that might know I don't really like them. I also don't fret when I'm actually being recorded, security cam, doorbell cam, etc., because I was already assuming I was being recorded. Story 32. Assume positive intent. Not because I'm naive, like when it's obvious there is bad intent. I'm talking about those situations where maybe someone is being inconsiderate, lazy, passive-aggressive, or genuine, etc. It isn't clear. Why worry about their motives? It takes less mental energy to just assume positive intent and act accordingly. For example, if someone you work with makes the same mistake repeatedly that you then have to correct, why stew or suspect that it's intentional or just lazy? Just talk to them and assume positive intent on their part, like, hey, I noticed that you inadvertently overlooked filling a part of the spreadsheet I rely on for my analysis. Can I show you where it is and where to find the info so that I don't have to bother you again? Story 33. When making a round-trip journey to the store, for example, Never return via the exact same path you originally took, if there is any alternative. Life is boring and repetitive. I will sacrifice efficiency for the sake of variety and take side streets and circuitous routes just to mix it up. It baffles my passengers. Story 34. I will always tell someone if they have food stuck in their teeth, a booger hanging out of their nose, their zipper is down, ECT. I hope this is helpful and saves them from feeling more embarrassed once they've realized it. Maybe it's better if they think no one has noticed though. I'd want to know. Story 35. Never cook at home without shoes on. Whether it's spill boiling water, a dropped knife, or just simply from a comfort support standpoint, your feet are protected. Most people don't do this at home. You should start. Story 36. I end every phone call or hangout with friends, family with an I love you. No questions asked, even if they just called to ask a quick question or just stopped in for a second. Sometimes people are caught off guard at first, but then they always smile really big, and it makes me so happy, especially my guy friends. Guys tell each other you love each other more. I don't think you all hear it enough. Story 37. Never let your poor emotional regulation negatively impact the people around you. I recognize my hereditary anger issues at an early age, and I promised myself I wouldn't make it anyone else's problem. When I feel my neck start to get hot or my breathing gets shallow, I leave the room and calm down before seeing the problem person again. In all my years, I've never slammed a door, broken anything out of anger, or even yelled in anyone's face. And I've been busting my ass to fix the root issue for the greater good. My emotions, my responsibility. Story 38. Never say the first thing that pops into your head when someone tells you their name. Someone gets introduced to you and you immediately think of something witty to say. Maybe it rhymes with something or a clever play on words. Don't say. You've known this guy's names for 2 seconds. He's had it his whole life. It doesn't matter if it is objectively funny. He's already heard it 100 times. Story 39. Always think something nice about people I see. If my immediate reaction is something unpleasant, I don't like her outfit, I'll think about something I do like or turn it around. I don't like the style, but that color suits her, or she has amazing hair. I also come up with nice things if someone else says something unkind. I think it's just better to be as positive as we can about people around us. Story 40. I would never touch alcohol when I am sad or upset. Basically, I will drink if I am sure that I am neutral or happy, but never drink to be happy. Else it will be a slippery slope into oblivion. I have 2 bad experiences from my own past. I was never an alcoholic, just that the experiences that led to this rule were very embarrassing. And I also watched enough people go down this road to learn this. My parents never had alcohol as a part of their life. I introduced them to some good whiskey, limoncello, Nordic spirits. So only when we meet and I have something nice, then they drink with me. But if they ask for more after their second shot, I cut them off. I also drilled this rule into them when I gave them a bottle of limoncello. Mom says I could have been a responsible bartender. Story 41. When children show me or give me a piece of art they made, I tell them how much I like it, and then I ask them to tell me about it. I do not offer any explanations or guesses as to what it's a picture of. This keeps the child from getting discouraged that you couldn't tell their blob was a giraffe, and also lets you have a fun little convo with them. They're just small people, and while they won't be able to articulate an art gallery style from the artist blurb about it, they have their own thoughts and feelings about the art they make. Be sure to ask about it. I use Story 42. I work in a 5-story building with 2 elevators. My shift starts before a lot of employees in the building. In the morning, I always send the elevators back down. I even call the second elevator to my floor just to send it back down. I know I'm always happy to have the elevator door open for me immediately in the morning. I hope others feel the same, especially if they are running late or trying not to share with the person close behind them or just having to wait. Story 43. Place behind a place rule. Never trust a place behind a place. Chinese spot behind tire shop, place behind a place, tire shop behind a Walmart, place behind a place, gym behind a Big Lots, place behind a place. If it's good, then could afford to be the place in front of the place. There are some exemptions though. Bookstores, taco trucks, and game card stores. Story 44. Not to mistake friendly people with good people. I don't exactly know how to phrase it, but I essentially mean that I don't instinctually think the well-groomed, well-mannered person who never misses a please and thank you with a pleasant smile is a good person. I've met complete asshole who will fart in a crowded elevator, blame the person next to them and call them the F slur, but are most likely to let you live on their couch for free if you're in a jam. Story 45 from a job I once had that required daily email conversations. Pretend you have the whole office seat on your email, watching what you say. Even if it's just one person you're emailing back and forth with, keeps you polite and professional no matter what bullshit you're dealing with from the other person. Story 46, don't challenge Murphy's Law. Couple weeks ago, the dispatcher of my temp agency showed me how to fill out the timesheet for a new, to me, client. What info goes where? The shebang. When she started to put in the actual shift times, I said, stop, don't jinx it. Something may go wrong, public transport. I may run late and I'll have to rewrite this timesheet, and I may show up late to my new client. So don't do it. She didn't, and everything went fine. She gave me a talk about superstition though. Nothing serious, we had a good laugh about it. Fast forward to this week, new client, new timesheet. She put in the times and I let it slip, and guess what? I messed up the public transport schedule despite prior preparation and was 30 minutes late on my first day on the new job. Apologized, no big deal, and had to rewrite the time slip, minor inconvenience. First law of Murphy says, whatever can possibly go wrong will go wrong, and you better listen to Murphy. Second law of Murphy says, whatever there is that cannot possibly go wrong, guess what? It will go wrong too. It's basically a lesson about complacency. Can happen anytime, and it happens when you're off guard. Heed the law of Murphy and don't jinx yourself. Story 47. If someone does something incredibly illogical, they are probably too illogical to listen to logic, and you should ignore them. Even if the person is usually reasonable, there is obviously something that is making them unreasonable at the moment, and you should wait until they become reasonable again to talk about. Story 48. Work left to right. It makes sense if you are right-handed, the left hand feeds the work, the right hand does the action, and moves the finished item to the right. It also works if you are ambi like me, just because there is a method. Most any method is better than no method. If you are a lefty, you can work from right to left, but expect compromise if you live with a righty. This consistent circle of movement lets you or anyone else entering your workspace know where to move things, where to stand to be out of the way, and provides lots of other information about what process is going on. If you walk around the room clockwise, you can move things into the next work area as you go. Even if you are just traveling across the room, your hands can be carrying objects to the next place they need to be. You can purposefully set up a workspace to function like this. Take the kitchen. Viewed from overhead, groceries come into the kitchen on the northwest corner. The dry goods drop underneath the counter. The perishables go in the fridge. The food from the fridge and dry storage visits the sink in the north. Once cleaned, they head to the cutting board in the northeast. From there, they move to the stove to cook, which is the far east part of the kitchen. Cooked food goes into containers, platters, or plates on the southeast side of the kitchen, and eventually winds up on plates on the central to southwest corner, where we eat. Leftovers go back into the fridge, and we have completed the circle by going from southwest to the northwest fridge. Story 49. If I am watching the Cincinnati Bengals and my kids need something, I will always get them what they need at the expense of watching the game. The reason for this is because I am always rewarded for this with having awesome plays occur while I'm away. Karma is real and I have solved it. Story 50. Currently on a pretty strict caloric deficit, macro counting diet. If I see a snack around the house or something I usually have but shouldn't, I'll pretend I ate it and keep walking. Sounds silly, but I feel the same as I would probably 5 minutes after eating it, and the taste went away without the urge to eat another. Story 51. When the alarm goes off, get thee out of bed. Do not snooze. You're training yourself to loathe getting up. If you need to, set the alarm-making thing far enough away from the bed that you have to get up to make it stop making noise. Then just stay up. Then you'll be training yourself to wake up when you decide you need to wake up. Story 52. Secondhand embarrassment is a choice. I grew up being embarrassed by a family member who would often say or do inappropriate or embarrassing things. For the early part of my life, I actively avoided being seen in public with them, but eventually learned to embrace the chaos and that their actions were their own and weren't a reflection of me, and I could just choose not to feel any negative emotions in a given situation. Story 53. If you're driving somewhere during winter, Always have winter boots and a warm coat in case your car breaks down and you have to walk anywhere or wait without heat on. I've lived in New England my entire life and have never had that happen, but I'm going to keep doing it because you won't be catching me cold and wet next to my broke-down Yaris. Story 54. One of the best advice I got when I was dating around. Leave her better than when you found her. When dating, go on trips, read books, learn some new hobbies together. Simply having a new shared experience helps both of the individuals in the relationship. And if it doesn't work out in the end, at least you both grew as a person a tiny bit. Story 55, freeze first. If fries are included in your food order, eat them first. The reason being mostly based on the chance of potentially reheating portions of your meal for later. You can usually reheat most other sides and entrees in the microwave, and they turn out fine. Reheated microwave fries suck. Yeah, you can follow the various tips for good reheated fries, but who has the time for that? Obviously not applicable in every situation, but works well as a general rule of thumb. Story 56. If I see packaging with a cosmetic flaw in something I'm buying, I automatically pick that one, because no one else will. Cereal with a box cutter mark? If the bag is whole, it goes in the basket. Wonky looking apple? Mine. Misprinted juice label? You're coming home with me. Only once, when replacing a toaster oven, has it not worked out. The hole in the box was where something, forklift prong, genuinely did damage to the item. When I returned it the next day and showed how the box and puncture to the oven lined up, they quickly exchanged it. Although the employee was a little confused at first as to why I bought it in the first place, if I'd seen the box damage before buying until I explained this was a first. Story 57. A long time ago, I read somewhere that being yourself is how to find your people. Because if you're false in any way, you won't attract people who like who you truly are. So I stopped trying to hide my flaws, disorganized, chronic illness, ADHD, etc., and just let people know exactly who I am. It really helps. People who are irritated by people like me will stay away, and people who don't mind will come closer. And I find this to be true. Story 58. When someone is speaking in a group setting, may it be a presentation, a work conference, or just casual talks, I make eye contact and nod every now and then. Speaking out in front of people can be daunting, and this simple act encourages them to keep going, ensures that they are doing a good job communicating their thoughts and that they make sense, and just makes them feel good in general. It was done to be while I was doing a school presentation in front of a semi-big crowd, and this girl looking at me and constantly nodding gave me a huge boost in confidence. I've adopted it since. Story 59. I tend to try to find one or two things about someone I could compliment them on during an interaction. Most of the time, it's something I know they've added purposely or worked hard on, like the color of their nails or a particular piece of clothing. I love to think that they'll always associate a positive comment with that choice and feel confident later. People think this is crazy, but I think giving a compliment is the easiest, most effective way to make someone's day. Story 60. You can build social capital and you can spend it. Think about which you are doing before you act. Building trust and social capital as a matter of course by being generally helpful pays off when you need something and people feel more inclined to help you out because you've helped them in the past. It also pays off by contributing to a culture where people help each other, and it benefits your reputation and makes work more pleasant. That being said, good boundaries make good neighbors. If someone takes advantage of help but doesn't reciprocate when given the opportunity, going forward you are not obligated to offer any more help than your job role requires. You get what you give. Story 61. When shopping online, I put items in my cart then leave it alone for a day or so. Most of the time I forget about and if I don't, it's usually something I really need or have wanted for long enough to justify the purchase. The simple act of finding it and putting it in the cart usually gives me the dopamine I wanted without actually spending the money. Story 62. I unpack immediately upon getting back from a trip. Sometimes I'll even start a load of laundry at that night after I finish unpacking. I have no idea where this came from. I traveled sparingly growing up, so it wasn't from my parents. Up to my 30s, I would be one, like many people, to leave a half-unpacked bag sit for a few days or longer before dealing with it. Then some switch went off in my head and I started to feel compelled to unpack immediately upon walking in the door from the airport. Maybe it subconsciously bothered me for all those years to not do it immediately, and it just took a decade for my dumb brain to make it a conscious thing. Story 63. Finish one thing before you start the next. Finish that box of cereal before you open the next one so one doesn't go stale. Finish that project before the next one so you don't have multiple unfinished projects. Finish your task before moving on. Sometimes it's hard for me to multitask because of this, but it helps me follow through on things and ensures I don't get overwhelmed by too many unfinished things or throwing out bad food or having excess clutter, etc. Story 64. I will not apologize unless there was an action I took, either deliberately or by accident, that caused a result or chain of events I feel responsible for that I regret. As such, I will not apologize if someone is demanding me to, as I do not feel remorse or regret, and if someone is demanding it of me, chances are they are on the wrong and can't handle it. Note that I hold others to this as well, and it drives my wife bonkers. She is a serial over-apologizer. When she apologizes for little things, and I say that wasn't your doing, no need to apologize. And yes, I did get pushed out of a job for this policy at one point, for not apologizing to an a-hole entitled customer. Story, sure you, but no, even with my son. I have lots of trauma around food and diet from the language that was used when I was growing up. I don't comment on how much he's eaten, etc. We have conversations before and after meals about nutrition and making sure our body is getting what we need. We have conversations about what happens and how our body feels if we eat too much sugar, etc. But he doesn't. Also, the amount of times I didn't try some food because my mother would say something like, "Oh, yuck, that looks disgusting," only to realize years later that I actually really enjoyed whatever it was is wild. I missed out on so much yummy food. Not to mention that nobody likes it when they're eating something and you tell them it looks disgusting. Story 66. If I need to make a very important decision, I think about it sober, then I smoke some weed and think about it some more. I've found that generally my stoned mind makes more thought-out decisions. I tried to trust my sober mind, but it doesn't make the best choices sometimes. So now I consult both mindsets and see which one makes the better point. Story 67. When I cross streets by foot, I will follow the strictest of rules if I have any of my senses impaired. Whether I'm a bit tired or wearing an earbud, even if there's no car in sight, I will wait for the walk sign at the crosswalk, even if it means going a little further down the street or waiting a bit longer. Story 68, always have an escape plan. I apply this rule to living situations, jobs, relationships, and anything in life. It's mainly a symptom of ideation. I hate feeling trapped, but it has saved me a lot. A couple of years ago, my best friend, roommate, co-worker, turned out to be a manipulative narcissist and cost me my social life, my home, my job, and my emergency savings. I started life over completely overnight, but managed to keep my head above water, even just barely. Story 69. Every stupid verbal instruction gets an email response along the lines of, "Just to clarify, per our discussion, you want me to break this equipment, not order stuff, do regulatory shady, dual purpose as it gives them another chance to back off the stupid and generate some backup evidence." Story 70. The golden rule. If you have even a shred of empathy in your life or a conscience, it's literally all you need to not be a piece of. Also, if you ever have to ask yourself if you're doing the right thing, whether it's a life decision or a stupid garage project, it's probably not the right thing, but either way, it's worth looking into. Story 71. You don't have to like any group, including family, children, elders, strangers, or customers, but you need to start the interaction kindly. If people are shits, then move on to the appropriate reaction based on power over you and history of behavior. But you need to try kindness, respect first, because it isn't their fault you don't like them, usually. This started due to me not liking kids but being nice to them, because I didn't want them to know I disliked them. Story 72. 1. I behave in a way that I don't have to lie. Even a little lie can be a burden on my mind, and I don't want to spend energy to carry them around. 2. I always keep at least one spot in the house clean. When everything else is a mess, that spot gives me peace and keeps my spirits up. Usually it's the kitchen. 3. When I start having negative thoughts and or feelings towards someone close to me, I know that I haven't spent enough time with them lately, and I send a message, call, visit them. Story 73. Mom was using and abusing the system when it was little. I was told to start popping out babies as soon as I could to get the most money and help. I'm 30, just had my first kid and refuse any kind of assistance. I can do it by myself, and there's people out there that actually need it more than I do. Story 74. When I'm in a depression spiral, I do not make any significant life decisions. My brain tries to protect me from these awful feelings by coming up with big ideas about how to fix it, like cutting someone out of my life, quitting my job, making some major rule for Miley kids' behavior, etc. I should not make such decisions when I'm overwhelmed by fear, anger, and sadness. Story 75, I was born on a Tuesday. Remembering that was weirdly and cathartically the thing that made me put in my 2 weeks at my last job. It was a toxic relationship and the longest I've worked anywhere. But yeah. Now, when I think it's a reminder that I have control over more of my life than I think, and I can change whatever I want to about it. It's especially effective on Tuesdays. Story 76, I never let my kids win at games. Now, don't assume that I insisted my 3-year-old played chess and then stomped them to make myself feel good. That's not how this works. I played age-appropriate games with my girls, and I was very careful to show them how to win the game. And then I let them try to win. I didn't play badly to let them beat me, but I also didn't go all out to win myself. I've always tried to help them get good at things, rather than be handed empty victories. I think it's made them stronger and more resilient kids. Story 77. Always have your keys when you are away from home. Dog walk around the block with spouse? Both should have their keys. You never know what kind of emergency could occur. It's better to have access to your vehicle and house no matter what, and keys are so small. Story 78. Nobody ever is thinking about how you look and act as much as you do. Did you trip slightly walking into work? Do you feel awkward and foolish and conspicuous? Nobody else cared. If they registered it at all, it never made it to long-term memory. They've forgotten it 5 seconds after it happened. Give yourself some grace and forget about it too. Incredibly freeing. Story 79. When talking with someone you don't know, ask them questions about their life and experiences. I used to work construction with people from all over the country, and it really helped me to get to know people by asking them about their life. Plus, I made a few friends also. Story 80. I learned in college that the more time I gave myself to get from place to place, the less stressed I was. It's more than being punctual. It's factoring in the time it takes to do the million little things that happen in between major daily events. I need time to get dressed, including putting on jacket, hat, or shoes if I'm already in my day clothes. To grab my purse, lock my house, our dorm. What if I get detoured off the fastest route, or just want to take a longer, more scenic route, or want to walk leisurely instead of sprinting? What if I walk by a friend and want to stop and chat? What if I go to the wrong place? Or what if the event changed location and I need to go somewhere else? Then once I'm there, I still need time to find a seat and to use the bathroom and to reapply makeup or chapstick or sunscreen or hand cream. And if I factor in time for all of the above, but don't use all of it, that's okay. I'm there early and have time to read, or to play on my phone, or socialize with people who are also there early. Story, i.e., there are, as always with everything, people who find awesome long-term happiness as the exception to the rule. But generally it ends up with unpleasantness and puts co-workers in awkward positions. Story 82. If I say or do something that I feel is embarrassing, rude, or will make me come off in the wrong light, I don't dwell on it. I immediately confront that so that I don't have to see with it for hours, days, or longer, wishing I did something different. I felt that I said something that came off rude to a coworker one day after leaving work. I turned my truck around and went back to explain myself and my intentions. We laughed about it, and he told me he didn't see what I said as rude, but glad I explained anyway. I speak up, and it has never once made me feel worse. Only better. Story 83. Tell yourself what you want to hear. If you are seeking validation, validate yourself in the exact way all your inner selves want to hear it. If you need emotional support, give yourself exactly what your selves need. You are your own soulmate. Act accordingly, and so on and so forth. I kiss my whole body and tell each part that I love them and why. Parts I cannot directly kiss. I kiss the tips of my fingers and tap the body part with my fingers. I'm welling up with love for myself just thinking about this. I must be grateful and appreciate my body. There are so many who cannot ever have the functionality I do, and I don't want to take myself for granted. I massage my entire body while soaping up in the shower, palpate my lymph nodes, then stretch my entire body before I dry off. I've gotten the whole procedure down to under 30 minutes. I try to act in every situation as best as I can so that I can be proud of how I act. I consider thoughts action as well. I want to live without regret, so I ask myself if I will regret not doing or doing something and act accordingly. Well, sure, if I am irritated, I have something to figure out. Irritation is a self-check emotion for me. It means I do not understand something, or had an ego reaction, or have to learn something. Anger comes from several basal fears: fear of the unknown, fear of loss of control, fear of bodily harm, self-preservation, etc. So I gotta solve whatever fear is causing my irritation, work though it, so I don't have that same reaction anymore. Works wonders for self-improvement. Taking full accountability and responsibility for my emotions, thoughts, and actions. This is not an exhaustive list. I have so many of these. Story 84. I follow the 80-20 rule. If I'm happy 80% of the time, then I'm blessed and have zero cause to complain. If I'm unhappy 80% of the time, then it's time to take action to change my situation. It's unreasonable to expect to be happy 100% of the time. I'm also the only person in a position to change the balance. Nobody else. Story 85. Isolation is no defense. I grew up religious. Now I'm not. There's a lot of eye-covering and reasonings where the answer is just fabricated on the spot, all designed to make you act or think in such a way, even going as far as to tell you that what you're seeing with your own eyes is a lie and you must avoid it. Just keep your head in this particular belief or you'll suffer. Isolation is no defense is a saying I thought up because I had to relearn basic concepts of life, overriding that which was installed from an early life of indoctrination. Always be aware, always be learning, never shun knowledge, and never fabricate lies to fill in the blanks. Story 86. The 24-hour rule: never, ever, ever immediately respond to inflammatory, controversial, or quite frankly, attacking emails, policy changes, or managerial. We are thinking of these radical changes, communications. Your first impulse will be to lash out, state how stupid the communication that you are responding to is, and to reply, based on the status quo, how many problems this new idea will cause. Let it percolate. Spend some time not thinking about the issue. Think about it at different time frames. Morning before you start work, midday at the height of your frustration, and post-work when you are sipping a glass of wine. Then respond. Story 87. Never pull out all your cash and count it in front of people. And always keep your smallest bills on the outside of the stack. If someone is eyeing your money, they'll think you don't have much. I never understood people that make sure to put a $100 bill on the outside of a knot of ones. It's not impressing anyone, it's just asking to be robbed. Story 88. Anything breakable needs to be at least its height away from any ledges. This greatly reduces the risk of a glass or vase falling and shattering. I learned this by observing the behaviors of a person I know that frequently breaks stuff by knocking it off counters. There are also follow-up rules to aid this. Put things away when you're done with them. A well-known idea. And if something is stuck, don't keep pulling or pushing. Instead, look for why it isn't moving. All three together greatly reduces the chance of shattered glass, ceramic, and certain plastics. Story 90. Keep people, except for your children, at arm's length or further. Period. I used to trust everyone. Now I trust no one, and for good reason. As a rule, humans are conniving, tribalistic, easily brainwashed and manipulated to be hurtful to others and very manipulative and cruel, but with false pretend kindness. I wish this wasn't the case, but nearly half a century of experience has proven it to be true countless times. Never give anyone the power to have any effect on your happiness and well-being. Story 91. My appointments for exercise are not optional. As soon as you allow yourself to postpone, cancel for piddly little reasons, then you shoot your program and health all to, don't get me wrong, I'll move a workout, for me it's running, to a different time of the day, or swap days if needed to accommodate something else in my schedule, and I'll certainly skip a workout if I'm sick, but that's a once or twice every few years occurrence for me. Story 92. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. I am not a super confident, arrogant person, so I tend to be more cautious and try to avoid upsetting someone or doing the wrong thing. In my job, I used to ask my superior how he'd like it done, and I eventually realized that I should just do it my way, and they can tell me if it's not okay, instead of always doing it someone else's way. Story 93. I was hoping this thread would deliver, and it has. I have an 8-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son, and a lot of this is great to pass along to them. 8 year is helping with the 5-year-old's abstraction, and this stuff is a great trove to share. Thank you all. I know that's corny AF, but man, it's important to me. Story 94. Tone and facial expressions speak much louder than actually raising your voice when you're upset or serious about something. I grew up with a parent that yelled about everything. I found myself doing the same with my kids when they were elementary age. I can't remember why I decided to stop yelling when angry or frustrated. Maybe it reminded too much of how I felt as a child, and I decided to try making my point without raising my voice. It's been a game changer. My stress levels are significantly lower, and there is peace in our home. Story 95. Anytime you get up and walk away from somewhere you've stopped, turn around and look back to check that you haven't left anything behind. Picked up this habit while bike touring after several instances of having to backtrack many miles to the picnic table, kai or park bench, Bakadusan campground, where I realized I'd left something after riding away. It saved me a lot of hassle or lost things on many occasions in the years since. Story 96. Always have a fulfilling meal, take a shower, and drink some water, and then reevaluate how you're feeling. I found that a lot of the time doing those three things magically fixes whatever the problem was. If not, then I'll go to sleep. If it's not bothering me after that, then it wasn't a real problem, just my funky brain misfiring. Story 97. I will absolutely talk about people behind their backs at work. However, I only ever say good things about them. Susan is a PowerPoint whiz who really helped me out with a presentation. Jim can fix any computer problem I've ever had like he's a wizard, etc. It doesn't always get back to me, but I know that on more than one occasion, the person who heard the gossip has met the subject of the comments and said, "Oh, I've heard all about you from cicadas. She praised your PowerPoint skills to the heavens," etc. Of course, I always thank whoever helps me in real time, and am very quick to pitch in when someone else needs help myself. The praise definitely had to be genuine, or it's just disingenuous, at best. It's one of my favorite things to do at the office. Story 98. This is very specific to me. When eating food, if no drink is present, use the left hand unless it is a two-hands food, but the left hand is still the main support hand of two-hand meals. When I have a drink with no food, always use the left hand. It's the dominant hand, which means fewer spills. If I have food and a drink, however, the food is handled by the left hand, or again, both in case of two-hand food, and the drink is handled by the right hand. This is very important because if a spill does happen, the way I seat myself at restaurants makes sure it doesn't get on the floor as I sit on the outside of the table with my left side facing nobody else to avoid accidentally elbowing someone. If I'm eating in a car, however, now both food and drink are handled by the left hand, and two-hand foods are never to be eaten by me whilst in a car. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't. Not to anyone but me, at least not the same way. Story 99. If possible, don't watch two people have a conversation if you want to know what they're saying. Act oblivious, and they will feel comfortable saying nearly anything at a volume they don't realize you can hear. I do this a lot. I call it people listening, even though it totally is eavesdropping. I'm just not doing it out of malice. I'm a curious cat and like to know things. Story 10. In the UK, when driving, I never start looking at the traffic on a roundabout until I'm the one that's about to enter the roundabout. I was once the passenger in a car where the guy was looking for an opening to enter a roundabout, but the car in front of him had to brake immediately after entering the roundabout. We rear-ended the car in front of us. Always make sure the car is clear before you decide to go. Story 11. Talk nice about people behind their backs. It really helps in some profound but intangible ways. The thing is, you gotta be genuine about it. You have to find something you genuinely respect and admire about that person. You cannot force it. The benefit of this is that it really cuts resentment off at the pass, and it's especially helpful if you have a baseline negative view of other people. Story 12. When dealing with retail workers, restaurant staff, etc., I always remember to be extra nice, even if they are rude. Everyone can have a bad day, and it never solves anything to match rudeness with rudeness. It just makes the issue bigger. Plus, excessive niceness often disarms and holds the mirror up. And not to forget, I would never want to do their jobs, so I am immensely grateful for them doing it so I don't have to. Story 13. Lately, I've been approaching chores as, I am doing this because future me will deeply appreciate it. It's been changing my mindset about a lot of things about myself. Just small things, like doing this dishes as I make them, sweeping the mess when it was made, setting out my clothes for the morning the night before, or making my bed before I leave in the morning. The other night, I was exhausted, but I needed to hand grind some coffee beans for the week. I didn't want to, but I knew future me would appreciate it. The next morning, I was so grateful that past me was so thoughtful. It's the first few times in a long time that thinking of myself had brought a smile to my face. Story 1-4. I'm seeing work-related ones, so I'll put it in writing. Commiserate verbally as much as possible and as much as you want, but if it's legit, put it in writing. Also, apologize to someone's face when I behaved wrong, like in an argument. No need to explain what exactly, but something like, remember on Tuesday, I'm sorry that wasn't appropriate. No, I'm sorry I offended you, or I didn't mean to hurt you. Just sorry, that's it. Saying no to things not because I don't want to, but because I'm at capacity, especially admitting it to myself. If I don't schedule a certain amount of downtime, my body will schedule it for me, and that is never fun. Learning this lesson was hard, and TBH still is. Story 1-6, always help the youth, especially the kids that pretty much hang outside all day under no guidance. IDC if they are badass neighbor kids nagging strangers for $1 for some snacks at the store, I always give something. Because as someone who had a horrible childhood, I always make sure to look out for the children because they need someone to look out for them if their family doesn't. Whether they spend it on candy or trying to save for a game console is not my concern. Their kids, let them be. I believe children should never have to see struggle, but unfortunately many do. Not all kids are bad kids. Some just need someone to care about them. Story 1-7. After 3 pings, attempts at communication with someone, in person, phone, letter, email, texts, whatever, it asks on them to communicate with you. Because if you are always the one initiating the communication, you may be bothering them or in an unhealthy relationship. You can just let go of that emotional and mental load. Simplifies the heck out of budding relations of any type and weeds out all the ones that be outlived their welcome in my life. They'll get back to you eventually if they were just going through some and wanted to be left alone for a while. Obviously only a rule for distant relations, acquaintances, or people you used to know, but still send a Happy New Year's to, not for closer friends or partners. Although now realizing I tend to not send more than 3 texts in a row. Story 1-8. Complete ownership of mistakes. I've dialed it back because in my 20s I would somehow find a way of blaming myself for things that had no place being blamed on me. No matter my situation, I never steal. 20 found I'll look around for someone who appears to have lost it. If nothing shows up, I'll buy sandwiches and drinks and hand them out to local beggars. Story 1-9. When I choose what game to play next, I always had a hard time deciding until I made a rule to just play the oldest game in my library first, no matter how much more I want to play newer games. Otherwise, I'd just buy games and never play them, since I would prioritize newer ones. With movies and shows, however, I still have a problem since I have access to thousands. Story 1 in my free time is worth $1. The actual amount varies, like if I'm on vacation, etc., and has gone up substantially over the years. When I was young, my free time was worth $20 per year. So if the supermarket overcharged me by 3, but it was going to take me 15 minutes to get my money back, I'd just let it slide, because 15 minutes of my time was worth 5 then. Or if the video games were beckoning me, I'd ask myself how much money I'd pay for the privilege. Putting an actual dollar amount on my free time made me manage my time much more effectively, and I think it bolstered my self-worth substantially, which I desperately needed when I was younger. Story 111. I've always taken notice of my dreams. They mean so much and can be really informative. It's about being able to decipher occurrences and meanings for you, so you can use them as cues to act on something, creative inspiration, a deeper meaning or awareness of something you are going through, unresolved past issues or recurring nightmares, disturbed sleep, or a physiological occurrence during the night, which signals you should be aware of taking better care of yourself. It's about getting in tune with yourself and being able to tell the difference between the random versus the intended. And when you start taking notice, you will get used to your own natural patterns and the dreams your mind gives you for different scenarios. Story 112. Someone will never know my personal life until I have made sure they are trustworthy. You won't know my past, my mistakes, or my faults until I know. You won't use them against me. It's not being a closed book. You just never know who's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Also, I will never engage in gossip or backbiting. If your sentence begins with, "Did you hear that so did this?" or "Guess what I just heard," then you will be shut down immediately. Unless the person you are referring to talks to me specifically about something, then it is none of my concern. Privacy is a very important thing for me, and I won't stick my nose where it doesn't belong. Story 113. Cut people off and don't forgive them when they harm you. whether physically, financially, or emotionally. I have never once in all my years been harmed by someone only once. If it happens once, it will without any doubt happen again. No, I do not mean a simple argument with a friend or spouse. I mean something along the lines of being hit, cheated in, used for money, or being heinously lied to. I see so many people forgive and forgive and forgive only to be hurt by the exact same thing. If the conditions are the same, so too will be the outcome. I keep my circle extremely small. I don't care if it's family or not. I have absolutely zero patience for people, and my life is dramatically better because of it. People used to take advantage of me when I was young and naive, but I have a hard red line, and people either respect it or are not a part of my life at all. Put yourself first in life because no one else is going to. The relationship you have with yourself is something a lot of people overlook, but it is incredibly important.